I'm honored to have an distinguished guest to speak with me. He is a mentor to me. He is the foremost authority on political content and commentary on WPFW, in my opinion. You know him from his show, Garland, Nixon, every Friday at 6 p.m. and is a lover of house music. So if the house can please give him a round of applause, Mr. Garland. You want Malcolm or what? Malcolm. You say Malcolm?
That's my son.
Okay. All right, so we're good friends, so I didn't give him, we're not reading from a script. This is an honest conversation about the radical side of Martin Luther King that Dr. Vincent Harden would say, the MLK that wouldn't get invited to MLK celebrations. So let me start by telling a quick story, and then I'll share the floor. I had the good fortune of attending the MLK commemoration of his monument. And for those who do not know, when that happened, it was like a near hurricane conditions that week, so all the festivities were canceled. Everything was inside the convention center. And having said that, there was a luncheon in King's honor, sponsored by whatever Greek fraternity he belonged to. There you go. And the keynote speaker at that luncheon was the assistant director of the FBI. And he says that the FBI supports the dream of Martin Luther King. I was like, what? And only me and one camera guy was like, I'm losing my mind up in here. And so what I'm saying is this, is that Atlantic Magazine some time ago came out with an article about the second assassination of Martin Luther King. It's talking about him being buried under a mountain of praise. So we're here to excavate, if you will, the radical king. So I'm gonna start it off, Garland, with one quote that would definitely get MLK disinvited from an MLK celebration. And speaking of disinvited, Harry Belafonte, I was torn. One piece that I wanted to bring here was a mugshot of Martin Luther King's first time he got arrested, Young King. And it's signed, autographed by Harry Belafonte. It sits in my studio in Martin, but because we had the MLK Day parade, I left that there because I felt he had to be there for the parade. So I didn't bring him in here today. Having said that, Harry Belafonte was disinvited to Coretta Scott's King funeral because at the request of George W. Bush. Harry Belafonte financed half of MLK's operation. All the artists that you know, he called them. He paid off their house. He sent his kids to college. And this is the man you disinvite to your mama's funeral because the president said so. I just want to put that out there. See, this is the part you don't get. But let me say this. This is, I urge everybody to look this up. It's 11 quotes from Martin Luther King, anti-capitalist quotes from, anytime you hear somebody say they're a capitalist, you should back up. Okay? What would you say? You hear somebody tell you that they're a capitalist, you should what?
Back up.
Okay. All right, woo, it's so many of them. Garland, I think I'm gonna start off with the most egregious one. We must recognize that we can't solve our problems now until there's a radical redistribution of economic and political power. This means a revolution of values and other things. We must see now that the evils of racism, economic exploitation, and militarism are all tied together. You can't really get rid of one without getting rid of the others. The whole structure of American life must be changed. America is a hypocritical nation, and we must put our own house in order. May the church say amen. God, next to the floor is yours.
Well, I think what's important there is to, and you know, anybody listens to my show, that's very important. Because what I believe in is looking at systemic problems. And one of the things that happen is we always get caught up in the politics of personality. And what he's saying is systemic. Even right now, okay, Trump, we don't like Trump, Trump's terrible and all that, right? But what do I always say? Trump didn't come into American politics. He came out of American politics. He was created by American politics. The fertile ground that would grow a Donald Trump was created by American politics. It was inevitable. That, one could even argue that Donald Trump is the devil's due. That the devil wants his due and he's here for his payment, and Donald Trump is the payment. That the United States system, as he says, you have a system that is born of slavery, that is born of theft, that kills millions of Vietnamese, that plunders. We talk about, what was it, Allende in Chile, when the government overthrew him and put in Pinochet. But why was it? For copper. They did it for copper. They did it because they wanted to plunder resources. The exact same thing that Donald Trump is doing today. The system's been doing it all along. So what happens is, we think if we just get rid of Donald Trump, everything will be fine. They've been doing this before there was a Donald Trump, and if Donald Trump drops dead tomorrow, the system will still continue to do it. But they want us to focus on Donald Trump, only Trump, and just say, okay, let's get rid of him and we'll all be happy again. That somehow the system went awry and we can set it right. The system was never right. And it didn't go awry. And so what Martin Luther King's saying here is exactly that. The system has to be changed. And I think they don't want us to look at the system. They want us to continue to, I would end up by saying this. What does the empire do? It has the North Koreans fighting the South Koreans. It has the Sunni Muslims versus the Shia Muslims. It has the Slavic people in Ukraine fighting the Slavic people in Russia. Everywhere you go, when they go to Africa, they would find two tribes and they'd set those two tribes against each other. It's always find the working class, the people that are struggling, and set them against each other. And what he's saying is this: don't be misled by one particular part of the system. The system works well together, and the system can't have you knowing that. And that's exactly why they had to act on him, because he was putting you on the foundation of what has to be done, and understanding that I was saying this. It's not that the system doesn't work. If you think the system doesn't work, you don't understand what it does. It works perfectly in what it does. Extracting money from the poor and the working class and putting it in the hand of a few billionaires works very well. So yeah, that was certainly a good reason for the system to act on.
I always put forth: is the system broke and needs to be fixed, or the system fixed and needs to be broken? I leave that to the audience.
Revolution is about, right?
That's what it is. And speaking of revolution, a lot of people don't know this, that Martin Luther King's last full sermon, his next to his last speech in life, was delivered here in Washington, D.C., March 31st, 1968. The title of that speech was "Remaining Awake During a Great Revolution." Mm-hmm. In that speech, he goes on to say that far too often people find themselves living in periods of great social change, yet they fail to develop the new ideas, the new mental responses that the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution. I submit to you that's the quintessential definition of stay woke. That's why they turned into a pejorative, which behooves me, breaks my heart, when I hear our own people repeating the words of our enemies. Oh, you want no woke people. You want them unconscious motherfuckers? Wake up. What Spike Lee say? Wake up! So, how do I say this? I got to be mindful that I'm supposed to be telling you all the reasons why you should be excited to be alive in this moment. Because a lot of us are depressed. A lot of us look around and we see things that has no end to it. Endless wars for profit. There's nothing we can do to stop it. We keep losing and da-da-da-da. And even when we win, we still losing. Because I remember when Barack Obama was elected, boy, they partied like, oh, it was some parties, money. It was some parties. Strange white woman kissed me in my mouth on the night Barack Obama won. We won! Do you know what would happen if my black ass kissed a strange white woman in her mouth? That's, you want to talk about white entitlement. You know, just want to put it out there, true story.
Wasn't me.
I would have took it from you. And I got to shout out, and that was the voice of my little dragon. That is Medea Benjamin, the almighty Lord Benjamin, who is a direct descendant of John Brown. And I love her so. I love her so. In fact, I probably know Medea longer than anybody in this room except for Mazi Mutafa. Yeah, because I knew her when I was homeless with this pen. She invited me to her parties. Come on in. Just like I invited homeless people in here to come get the food, and the guy was saying, "That's nice that you do that." I'm like, "I'm not going to do that. It's MLK Day. It's food."
Yeah.
You know, I didn't invite him into my house. I said, "You can have some food." But I think that we should try to master practicing something for MLK Day every day. If we can do that, if we can start to do that, because there was black churches that wouldn't allow Martin Luther King to speak again.
Right.
There was a crucifixion of Martin Luther King before the assassination. Are we going to talk about the conspiracy of the assassination? You want to get into that?
Absolutely. I'll talk a little bit about that. It's very, and this is very critical, because one of the things that happens, and you all know it, every time there's this assassination, we're told, you know, there's like mysteriously a lone gunman who did it by themselves with no help from anyone else. And
a lone wolf?
Yeah, lone wolf gunman, you know.
There's a lot of lone wolves.
And it's taught in school, and that tells you it's a system. I mean, you go back to Abraham Lincoln, and then what do they say? Oh, just a John Wilkes Booth. Oh, wait a minute. 5 people were hanged, including a woman, for that assassination. And they attacked his whole cabinet. It was an attempt to decapitate the entire cabinet. They attacked the guy was William Seward, all of them. It was a very broad conspiracy to kill Abraham Lincoln. And we're taught it was just a lone madman, John Wilkes Booth. Lincoln, did you know, and anybody can take their phone out and look right now, Martin Luther King, the King family sued in court and won, and it was found that it was a conspiracy. And here's what's interesting about it. So the guy who supposedly did it, and when they I've been to the Lorraine Hotel and saw all that, watched all that stuff. You know, saw everything. It's like a museum now. But yeah. But the thing about it is, when they showed where he's supposed to shoot from, he'd have had to like hang out the windows sideways, and there was a bush in the way. They came out the next day and cut the bush down. So the story would work, right? And here's a guy who supposedly, a year before, broke out of jail. Somehow he got out of jail. After the shooting, a man with no means of support, no money, no passport, no nothing. What did he do? He went to Toronto and caught a plane to England, where he was then heading to Rhodesia, which tells you that the British Empire was that it was clearly, it wasn't just, you think about this, it wasn't just the US, it was the Brits. He was a problem. Let's not forget, Vietnam was what? France was there first. The United States financed France. France got run out. The United States came in. A lot of people do not realize that when you see France and all of these empires, what did France do in Africa? They maintained all of these countries that they robbed blind, but how did they do it? Africa. They used U.S. Military and U.S. intelligence. So what you have is U.S. And the colonial powers in Europe all working together. You know, some of the Brits actually laugh about it, and they laugh about this song. There's a song that says, I got the brain, you got the bronze, let's make some money. That's the way they see the U.S. Well, we got MI6 and all of these spies, and y'all got a big machine. When Martin Luther King starts saying, I got a problem in Vietnam, we need to stop doing that. Yeah, the U.S. hears it. The Brits hear it. The French hear it. They're all getting paid. The colonial powers are all doing this together. So again, we talk about system. It's not just money, if they stop Vietnam, that's coming out of the pockets of the billionaires here. The Brits, the French, they're all working together. So think about that. It wasn't, people say it was the FBI. It wasn't just the FBI. You know, for a guy with no passport and no visible means of support to quickly get to Toronto and then immediately get to London. And then he's going to Rhodesia. How is he going to live? Clearly, it was an intelligence operation. And the system teaches us it was a lone gunman. It's always a lone gunman. So I think that's important to understand that when you talk about a system, you're not just talking about the FBI, you're not just talking about the CIA, you're talking about a numerous powers where they're all still involved in colonial theft and they're all filling their pockets. And Martin Luther King's mouth got in the way, and that was the problem.
I didn't mention, we're gonna have a Q&A after this. We're gonna have a Q&A. I didn't want to leave Obama off the hook because we had mentioned his name. So I cannot say Obama's name without saying Libya. And so some people just love them some Obama. You know what I'm saying? My mama thought it was Jesus. But he destroyed the country with the highest standard of living in Africa. Okay? And why did he do that? Because Gaddafi was threatening to implement a gold standard and as a united currency for the United States of Africa. Why did Trump just invade Venezuela? And we're doing a Q&A afterwards, but Medea, you have the right to interrupt me if anything doesn't ring true to you. But Venezuela was supporting the BRICS. You everyone familiar with the BRICS? Do I need to explain that? Okay. And and they was about to create their own currency, which would have been a threat. And Venezuela was key to the implementation of that, and that's why they went in. Because it's not what they do necessarily, it's when they do it. Any good detective works his software would create a timeline. So you got to understand why they do it, when they do it. And then you go back, why did Bush go in Iraq? Because Hussein was going to implement using euros for the exchange of oil instead of the American pound. This is all about petrodollars. That's the constant thread here. And we need to understand that. And what King was espousing was an examination of U.S. foreign policy. And that is what they felt that he was out of pocket for. And even people as respectable as Thurgood Marshall said that they sent a boy on a man's errand. I'm sorry, it's true. These are inconvenient truths. Okay, I told y'all this is the radical side of what it is. And all this can be confirmed, and you can go check it out. But for those who are too young to remember, there was a great man by the name of George E. Curry, who was the editor-in-chief of Emerge magazine. I had the good fortune of getting drunk one night with George Curry. We was in, guess where we was at? Minneapolis. Nobody knew the revolution was going to start in Minneapolis except for Prince. Okay? Shout out to Prince. My next play is the night Prince was killed. Shout out, look out for that. Okay, look out for that. And so we're in Minneapolis at a free press conference, and we're in the hotel bar getting drunk. And drunk man's words is a sober man's thoughts. So when people are drinking and talking, you should listen. They mean that. And he says to me, I don't know how we got on the subject, but somehow we got on the subject of Jesse Jackson. And George Curry said, he did it like that. He finished his shot. Fuck Jesse Jackson. I'm like, I'm a young man. I'm like, don't you love Jesse Jackson? Go Jesse. Let me tell you about that Jesse Jackson. And I'm only going to tell you what I was told. You know, George E. Curry said this to me. Drunk, so he telling the truth. As he sees it anyway. When Martin Luther King was assassinated, everybody in Martin Luther King's party was on the balcony of the Lorraine Hotel, except for one person. Jesse. Where was Jesse? Downstairs. When King gets shot, Jesse runs upstairs, wipes his hand in King's blood, wipes it on his shirt, does interviews with that for 2 days. He said he refused to take his shirt off because he's in such grief. Right? That's what the man said. That's what the man said. Now, I turn it over, that hot potato over to you, because Dick Gregory had a lot more to say than that. Dick Gregory said, and I can't think of the other preacher's name, that he got out of the way so they could have a clear shot. And y'all can look that up. Dick Gregory said that. So I turn that hot potato over to you, because we can always talk about the system, but sometimes it boils down to us, don't it? They will pay somebody that look like us so they can say it was us. And we got to get to a level of political sophistication to recognize that, okay? And it behooves you to make sure that you separate who you think is, how do I say, one of us without any proof that they are. So I turn that hot potato over to my brother.
Well, I think what you're saying is very important for a couple of reasons, and that is because what you're pointing at here is the importance of grassroots activism, the importance of people on the ground, trusting people on the ground for this reason. You know, if you look at history, the system is very, very good at co-opting, and putting people in there that are theirs. You know, I could say a lot of things. My sister was the chief operating officer for the NAACP under, let's see, Kwame Nkrumah was the president, Andrew Young was the chairman of the board, and she was the chief operating officer, so she really ran it. And I could tell you some stories that would get me in a lot of trouble from things I've heard, you know, about various people. But my point being this, you know, we are given two things. We are given heroes and we are given villains. That's what the system does. They'll put somebody out there and everybody will tell you this is the villain and you're all supposed to dislike this person. And then they'll say this is the hero, and that's one of the ways they keep us you know, separated, by giving us heroes and villains. And neither one of them is the hero, and you know, most of the time most of them are the villain. And now the game is, I'll give you, and I always gripe about this. You got the,
I want your phone to fall out.
oh, thank you. And this is the game. You have the first black fill in the blank, the first female fill in the blank. Well, that can be good, but we still have to look at the works of the person that's doing it. So what we're told is, well, you've got the first black so-and-so, the first female so-and-so, the first whatever so-and-so. And when we get that, okay, that's to celebrate that for a day, whatever. But then that's often used for, in a way, to keep us from not focusing on what the person did. And nobody was a bigger Barack Obama fan than me when he came in. But when you know, things happened and I started looking back.
You was a Barack Obama fan?
Oh man, are you kidding me?
I heard him when he said that he admired Ronald Reagan. That's when I knew that shit was too good.
Well, you know, exactly. But over time I started looking and saying, you know, what I'm seeing is not what I was told. But it was a good, a valuable lesson for us.
He did look good. I mean, you could not stop that one. This boy, he was pretty. You know,
that's what makes it so suspicious.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It was everything was perfect. Beautiful family, kids, everything you need. But when it came down to it, when you looked at, you know, the reality, and anyone can look this up, Barack Obama got an email from Citibank recommending the people for his cabinet, and every one of them went in his cabinet. And that should have been an indication to us that we would feel good, you know, and we would have the first black whatever and things of that nature. But ultimately the system got what the system got, and when he left, we weren't better off. You know, I got suspicious, to be honest. I was a law enforcement officer. I retired the year he came in, and like his buddy Skip Gates got harassed by the police. Remember that? You remember that?
The police acted stupidly.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? And the way he resolved that was the white officer that harassed him. He brought him in and had a beer with the guy. And I'm thinking, well, you just right now, if I'm a white officer, I'm thinking, man, I'll get a beer with the president. All I got to do is grab a black person and rough him up a little bit. You know, but my point being, this is something for us to all consider and to understand that, you know, the working class people, the people who are ground roots activists can trust each other. But I'm not saying that there aren't people in high places that could theoretically work on our behalf. But don't take it for granted that, okay, we got a new black so-and-so, and therefore we're better off. Hold them to account in the same way you would a white guy from Shelbyville, Alabama. And you never know. Another thing that Abraham Lincoln said, and I very much believe in this, and that is, he talked about how, hey, if I agree with somebody on this issue, I can work with them on that issue. And then, if we disagree on something else, we can go our separate ways on that. You know, the first time I ever heard anybody say the people in D.C. shouldn't have to pay taxes if they don't get representation in Congress. It was in New York City. I was going to do an interview on Fox News. And I was there with Louis Gohmert. Remember him?
No.
He was anybody ever remember Louis Gohmert? He was this I know you remember. He was this right-wing kooky guy from Texas. He was a piece of work.
Texas.
Yeah. But he said to me, he was like, oh, you're from the D.C. area. I said, yeah. He goes, yeah. And he started saying, he was 100%, he just said what you said. I don't think they should have to pay taxes since they don't have representation in Congress.
Yeah, Puerto Rico don't, Guam don't,
exactly.
All the other non-voting delegates don't. Just want to put it out there.
How about that? That's why the billionaires moved to Puerto Rico. If you're a resident in Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico! Hey!
You're a resident in Puerto Rico, you pay no federal taxes. But in D.C. you do. So, but again, a guy who I might not agree with on anything else said something, and I said, you know what? If you were getting people to vote, you might get his vote. If you had any confidence in the system, which I really don't. But notwithstanding that, my point is this. I think we have to focus on grassroots. And we have to not, as soon as you hear the first black, first woman, first this, don't go up and smoke, jumping around and dancing. Wait till you see what they do. And if you don't like what they do, saying, what are you voting for another $68 billion for whoever overseas? Wow, I come back to the black, it's always the same thing in the black community. Because I grew up playing basketball all the time, right? They always got $68 billion to send to somebody. They never have $10 to buy nets for the basketball court. You ever notice that? The black community, there's always a rim, and they never put nets on it. When I was a kid, we had to buy our own nets to put on the basketball court, but they got $1 trillion for war, right? And the problem I have is, where, and I always say this, where is that black person in the Senate? Where are those black people in Congress saying, oh, we're going to send $68 billion for this? Whoa, whoa, whoa. If you would get our vote, you're going to have to do this or that for the black community, poor communities. There's nobody saying that. And I don't care if you look like me, sound like me, or whatever. If you're not sticking your hand up saying, what about our people? You're not representing me.
Woo! Having said all that.
I want nets on the basketball court. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the redistribution of wealth Martin Luther King was talking about. All right, so we talked about Martin Luther King's next to his last speech, and I'm pretty sure everyone is familiar with his last speech, but what was the speech that he was going to make next? The title of that speech was America May Go to Hell. Wow. Did y'all know that? Anybody know that? Didn't know that? All right, heard it here first. We're delivering. I want to make sure we're delivering on our promise. We're excavating the radical king. I want to make sure we're doing that. So there's a quote from him alluding to that speech. This was delivered 2 weeks before his death. This was on March 18th. When he was in Memphis, that was his second time. He went there twice. Okay, first time they didn't go over that well. Niggas was out of pocket. They breaking windows and stuff. They got bad press. And I think it says a lot that his last acts in life was that he stood up for black garbage workers. You can't get no lower than that in American society, can you? Oh, never garbage worker.
And white garbage workers.
Oh,
he stood up for.
He stood up for all of them.
One of the reasons he was.
That was
another problem.
No, he did not.
There was some white garbage workers there.
There were down there, but the reason they had the strike is because when it started raining, the white garbage workers were part of the union and they could go inside, but the black garbage workers could not go inside So two of them got into one of those trucks, and they got crushed in the trucks, and that's when the black workers, garbage workers decided they were going to go on strike. That's how it started.
We will have a Q&A at the conclusion of this in about 15 minutes, but because he's the elder in this room, I'm not going to stop him. Thank you for keeping the record straight, brother. Ain't that what we're supposed to be here for? Yes. Intergenerational honest dialogue to get to the truth. The rooter of the tutor. All right. So this is what he had to say on March 18th. 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. If America does not use her vast resources of wealth to end poverty and make it possible for all God's children to have the basic necessities of life and nets on the basketball court, she too will go to hell. And he had written an entire speech. It was written, he hadn't read it yet. And Tavis Smiley read portions of this speech. I urge everybody to look it up. America may too go to hell. Now, if we're talking about MLK Day, there was only one person who voted against the passing of MLK Day. Anybody in the tribute?
John McCain.
John McCain.
Yeah.
John McCain. How many of y'all saw Dave Chappelle's last
That's why
You saw that? That was a little history for your ass, wasn't it? For those who did not, go watch Dave Chappelle. I ain't say you gotta like him, that's your opinion. I say go watch him. And he tells a story that Stevie Wonder sent him to pay respects to John McCain. And he did not know, he didn't tell him why. He said, John McCain bought his land and estate in the Rotunda, you need to go see him. And he went to go and said, Steve Wonder sent me, goodbye nigga. And it was because of what this beautiful sister in the front row just said, because John McCain was the lone vote against MLK Day. And then, who's the president that signed it into a law?
Ronald Reagan.
Ain't that some shit? Ronald Reagan supported apartheid South Africa, amongst other things, brought crack to America, among other things. Iran Kazakhstan, amongst other things. But he actually signed it. I don't know if he was in the right, do you think he's in the right frame of mind? You know he had Alzheimer's, so like, do you think he had Alzheimer's when he signed it?
Look like it.
It's for the king. It's for the king.
Yeah.
Long live the king.
He thought it was the king of England.
But he did sign it. He did sign it. But I have to say this. If you guys would turn your attention to the back of the room, on the music stand, you'll see two paintings rather, of Stevie Wonder. Those paintings are also from Picasso Pender. And we would not be here in terms of MLK Day if it was not for Stevie Wonder. Yeah. Stevie Wonder is the reason why MLK Day exists. Okay, that's the power of art. So let's give a round of applause. So now, the Black Birthday song is part of our culture, but we need to understand the roots of where it comes from, and that was for King's Day. It was a protest song. The Black Birthday song was a protest song for MLK Day. So if you don't do nothing else when you leave here, espouse that information, that is a protest song for MLK Day. It ain't just for fun and games. Like the parade that we have for MLK Day where they just playing a bunch of music and everybody dancing and partying. And only me and Free DC. Oh, so excuse me, who was it? We're the only two people that played Malcolm, Martin Luther King's speeches during the parade. Everybody else is partying. And we're the only ones that actually, you could hear his voice. And I had a Washington Post reporter come up to my speaker. He says, what speech is this? I said, the one that got him killed. Shazam that shit. All right. But Garland, Nixon, we got a few more minutes before we turn to Q&A. I want to end with what the MLK means to you and how he has affected you personally. Because I think that oftentimes some of the facts and figures get lost, but when we tell stories, people remember it. But before we get to that, I just want to throw that out so you can think about it. But I turn it over to you because MLK Day today feels different. You know, someone showed me an article, Trump doesn't acknowledge MLK Day. Who gives a, it's a federal holiday. So he doesn't acknowledge the name of the Gulf of Mexico too. So we gonna go with that? I would please, I didn't take another sip of Jesus juice. Go ahead.
Well, I think it comes back to something I said a little while ago, and that is, where he said America may go to hell, but Martin Luther King, everybody knows where he said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, right? And he said America may go to hell. That's one of the reasons I say, and other people have said it, that Trump is the devil's due. That the United States has done the most horrible things. We look at what's happened in Gaza and we are just appalled. But if you look at the system is shocked. They look at us like, oh, okay, we killed 500,000 or 600,000 people. We killed 1 million in Iraq. We killed 3 million in Vietnam. In Laos, there's a famous saying that Henry Kissinger said. Now, what was in Laos and Cambodia? A lot of poor rice farmers and peasants doing their thing. And when he wanted to bomb them, here's what he said: anything that flies on anything that moves. Just fly bombs over, and people who are living in small little villages, rice farmers doing nothing, just bomb them off. To this day, they still have a problem. I forgot how many, like 300 people every year die because they're still they'll run into little bombs and things from back in the 1960s and 70s, and kids get blown up to this day from then. So the United States, the evil that it has been doing, and it seems to me that what's happening is this system, justice is coming due. That this system is unraveling. It's coming apart right in front of our eyes. And there's two ways we can look at it. We can try to save it. That's one way to look at it. Or as Malcolm X said, when the master's house is on fire, the house slave says, let me get some water and put out the fire. And the field slave prays for wind, right? The system that is, let me tell you, the system that is oppressing me, the system that has enslaved my people, the system that has murdered and pillaged and slaughtered around the world for 400 years, do not look for me to be the one to save this system from the justice of the universe. Don't look for me to be the one to say when they scream, God bless America. If you believe in God, it's blasphemy to say that. For the things, it's not recognizing what the United States has done and is continuing to do. And Trump is the devil's due. And he said America's going to go to hell. But does that mean the whole country that everybody is? That means, I don't think you have to look at it like this. A system that's spiraling downward. A system, look at the poverty. When I grew up in a suburban area, I never saw homeless people when I was growing up, tents or anything like that. Around where I live, you never saw that stuff. It's everywhere. The system is on its way down, quickly, and faster and faster on its way down. And I think rather than us try to save an oppressive, brutal, vicious, murderous system, that we should look at it and say, it needs to die as it is. But that doesn't mean that everything has to go and everybody has to go. It needs to be changed. We need some form of revolution, and it doesn't have to be violent revolution, although unfortunately what's happening in Minnesota, could end up with some form of violence, And I'll add this as far as that's concerned. I mean, I could just look at it and say, okay, ICE, they're going after undocumented. No, they're not. If they were really going after undocumented people, where would they go? They'd go to the meatpacking plants that are owned by the rich. They could just close them all down. They could go to Tyson's Food. They could go to all these places where they could go to all of these. You know where they could go? They could go to the rich neighborhoods in Potomac, where the people who cut their grass and the people who work for them and watch their kids, they could go grab them. They're grabbing none of them. They're not. And really, if you look at now, they're grabbing Americans off the street that aren't even immigrants. They're grabbing, shooting people. It's all a fraud. I do believe that they understand the system's crashing. And they're getting us used to, accustomed to having troops on the streets, so that when we protest and say what's going on here, they're ready to stop the protest. And that may sound like a conspiracy theory, but it's a conspiracy fact. I always say this, you know the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth? About 8 months. That's about how it is. But the system is crashing, but don't try to save it. That doesn't mean that we all have to crash. Think about this. Now, no, it hasn't completely done. The British Empire, to some extent, crashed, didn't it? And, you know, after what was that, when they attacked in the Red Sea, but at any rate, and the people in England didn't all die.
Nah.
They didn't. They didn't move on. Now they still got a lot of work to do.
They went from Great Britain to just England.
To just Britain. So I'm saying.
Well, what's the thing they used to say? The sun would never set.
So
what the fuck?
So all I'm saying is this: don't get caught up in trying to save the system as it is. Understand that the devil's bill is coming due, and he's here to collect. And that being said, we have to say we need to build something new that is just for everybody. And we can work on building something new. Because you can't save it if you want to, not with the dirt that they've done. You can't save it to them. There's no way they can do this without paying a price. And the price will be paid. But what we can do is say we're going to build a new system that's fair for everyone else. And that's what we're going to work on. We're going to work on justice.
And here's an honest question. I don't expect a response, but during the Q&A, if you want to give it to me, that's fine. But something you should take home with you and meditate on. Why would you want to save it? If you are aware of all the evils this country has done, why would you want to save it? That's the macro issue. Let's take it to a micro issue. Here's a micro issue. Washington, D.C. The average white family has 81 times the wealth for the average black family. 81 multiples. So that means whatever you can come up with, multiply that times 81, and that's what our average white families walk around here. And we say average. I'm not saying that you know everybody you see. It says average. So anybody white that don't got it should be even more mad.
You ain't getting your fair share.
That means somebody got a lot more than you. I want to marinate on that. 81 times. 81. And that is why the housing market is what it is. The prices are now the white only sign. If I put enough zeros up here, it's going to eliminate. It's going to serve the same purpose. DC is the most dangerous city for a black woman of any social economic background to give birth in America. All black mayors, black Congress, mostly black council, but somehow that's acceptable. How many hospitals have been closed? DC General, Columbia Hospital for women, Providence for all good intents and purposes, United Medical and Southeast.
Casualty.
I'm missing one.
Casualty.
Okay.
Casualty.
Capitol Hill.
Casualty. Used to be Capitol Hill.
But check this out. At the intersection of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Avenue, a little girl was shot and killed in front of a liquor store. Their liquor license was up for renewal. In a white neighborhood, it would have been no afterthought. That would have been closed. We fought to close it, and we lost. In the hearing, I asked a very simple question to the AB board, the council members present, and even later the mayor. Very simple question. How many liquor stores is too many liquor stores? We have a saturation of liquor stores in a food desert. How many liquor stores is too many liquor stores? None of them could answer that question. You know what they say? This is. You want to know what the political word for BS is? I'll get back to you. You ever hear a person in politics say, "I'll get back to you"? Call it what it is, that's BS. I'm telling you, for 14 years of experience. My studio's on the right side of MLK Avenue in Acosta. There's been an abandoned building, a vacant building. It used to be a flower shop, been vacant for at least 3 decades that I know of. 3 businesses, 3 black-owned businesses in Anacostia tried to purchase the building. Mahogany Books. There was no bookstore in Eastern River for 25 years, by the way. There's only 2 bookstores in Ward 8. No, Mahogany closed. There might be only 1 bookstore in Ward 8, and there's no bookstores in Ward 7. So it's only 1 bookstore Eastern River. There's over 40 in the city. Only 1 Eastern River, but the majority of children in the city live in Eastern River. I just want to paint the picture. Now, these 3 businesses, Mahogany Bookstore, Nubian Human was a boutique African clothing store, and I can't think of the name of it, but it's supposed to be like a supermarket and a food desert. These 3 businesses were going to combine to share a building with 3 different floors. Can you imagine what that would have been like? Uncle shop, get some food, get a book, all in the same place, Anacostia, all black owned, boom, boom, boom. Should have been none done deal, right? They said no. So how is it that you can maintain an empty, vacant building for decades and turn down 3 businesses that we need and say no? The system maintains that, can it support that? No one can explain to me how, but it, obviously it's making some dollars and cents to somebody. The owner of that building owned the pharmacy next door. The pharmacy just closed. Now guess what's replacing the pharmacy? Anybody want to guess? A liquor store. This is under black leadership. I just want to put that out there. On Martin Luther King Avenue. I ain't got no problem with Martin Luther King Avenue being in the poor section all across America, because that speaks to his legacy and da-da-da. But we're the ones that's supposed to be doing something about it, ain't? Are we going to keep going with the people that got the most money? You know what Kenyon McDuffie said? No, don't disrespect to Kenyon McDuffie. He was an alright dude. He's been to WEAC Rail several times. He's partially responsible for us not being displaced. However, he's too closely identified with the mayor, and his voting record is some trash. So there's that. But his first announcement as a mayoral candidate, what does he say? First announcement. We just broke the record of the most money raised in the first 24 hours of a campaign. We raised over $184,000. I'm like, brother, read the room. We out here struggling, and you are out here bragging that you have raised more money than anybody who has ever ran in the first 24 hours. Which means that you are clearly the establishment candidate, are you not? So I ain't endorsing nobody, but I'm just telling those the facts. Okay, that's where we at. So we got a few more minutes. Closing comments in this Q&A. Closing comment. My closing comment. Whew, that was my closing comment. I'm sorry. That was my closing comment. On you, God. Your story.
I'm just saying, I'll say this, my closing comment is I'm glad to be here with the...
Thank you, brother.
I'm going to age myself, the young brother.
I've still been accused of being young.
Nah, I'm not often accused of being young anymore.
I'm right behind you, brother. Yeah. Big brother.
Yeah, there we go.
Big brother.
But, I'm glad to see not just new blood, running, not just a new name running, but a new attitude running. A person who's looking at the system and who's willing to question the system, a person who's really just willing to say, things are being done wrong, and a person who's looking at the people in the community who need help the most. All we usually get is somebody who's going to do something symbolic. They'll paint a Black Lives Matter boulevard or something, which looks good. Okay, it looks great. You know what I mean? They'll paint something, whatever.
And then snatch it back.
Psych! Exactly. But usually all you get is symbolism. And you can kind of see it coming when somebody tells you how much money they raised, and they raised more than anybody before. You're probably going to get symbolism, because they're telling you, I'm not talking about the grassroots issue, and I'm not talking about the people who are actually struggling. You know, oftentimes it's the people who can look out for themselves. Those are the ones giving them $184,000, so they can. And not only that, they're giving them $184,000. Who else is running? They give them $185,000. It's 5 candidates. They give them all the money. That way, whoever wins, you know, heads up and tails you lose. So I'm glad to see our brother here running. And you know, I think we should. I think we should support him and other people like him, those who can volunteer, those who can afford to give a couple dollars, those who can give their time, you know, whatever you can do to volunteer to help him. I think it would be not just highly appreciated by him, but I think it would be a form of your activism. I think it would be a form of your work towards the community to help him.
Namaste. Namaste. All right. We're returning over to the floor. All I ask is that you raise your hand and wait till we be calling you, but I will get to every hand in here before we get out of here, okay? And I know I got to get this one first because I got text messages from this person during the course of this interview. But let me just say this before she responds, is that I've been charged by my elders not to harp on the children of Malcolm and Martin. Dr. I call it anybody that's an elder that I think is brilliant, a doctor. Peter Bailey, he was the last surviving person that we know of that was there in the Audubon Ballroom when Malcolm X was assassinated. And the late, great Dick Gregory, we was in the green room at Roland Martin's show when he was nationally televised on TV One. And I was sitting there with them, and I was telling them about all the disappointment I had in the children of Malcolm X. And it's like, look, how would you grow up if you saw your famous father assassinated in front of you? How would you grow up if you knew your famous father that was assassinated in front of you died penniless because they could not get life insurance policies? How would you grow up if that person was the cause of these phone calls and death threats that you answered the phone on and heard? And they made me start to see the empathy. And while I'm on that word, pay attention to the light poles out here. There's a vertical sign that says empathy all around town. Look up when you catch it. And I met the brother that was putting it on. It's a white brother. And I said, why are you doing that? He said, that's my superpower. Because that's what the world needs, is empathy. I developed empathy for the children of mine. Instead of having this animosity, I developed empathy from my elders. And they made me promise that I would not speak negatively publicly about them. So I refuse to do so. And I hope you have empathy with them as well. I just want to share that. And I turn the floor.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I wanted to bring in the words of Miss Bernice A. King, which is Dr. King's daughter. She made a very powerful statement today that I wanted to share with the space and get your opinion on. She said, this MLK Day, remember my father by amplifying and advocating for the end of state-sanctioned and facilitated violence against Black and brown immigrants and against people, period. Speaking up for people who are suffering genocide in Sudan, Palestine, Congo, and other nations. Calling and writing your congresspersons, hey Kimo, in support of democracy as opposed to dictatorship. Supporting policies to eradicate poverty, higher minimum wage, affordable housing, etc. Learning the truth about and challenging anti-Black racism, which is still prevalent in healthcare, media, lending practices, and criminal justice system, etc. Those are her words today. So I wanted to give
I say touche. I have no qualms with that statement whatsoever. And when she is out of pocket, I do slide in her DMs, but I never say anything publicly other than I might remind her when she is cozying up to politicians that, you know, something her father said that will kind of like temper that a little bit. But
But this goes to your point.
I co-sign on that.
This MLK Day does feel different, right? Given the political climate we're in, I thought this was a very powerful and succinct statement. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I've met Bernice on occasion. Actually, I met Bernice and the King III. Unfortunately, the other two transitioned. But do you have anything you want to add to that?
No.
Okay, next question.
Can I ask you one thing? Kimon, you had mentioned.
He's in here with an Obama hat on his head.
Obama is this.
You got Obama hat on your head.
It's my people now. Very good.
You got Martin on your chest and Obama on your head. You're bipolitical. You go both ways.
Is that directly from next?
Okay. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry, bro. I'm just saying you got this big ass Obama thing.
Before I go to my place.
Okay, go ahead.
Listen, you mentioned about, I think, black, white. 81 times you said? 81 or 86 times you said, right?
I'm sorry.
Like the wealth of the white person or the black.
The average white family has 81 times.
The white family,
Yeah.
how many times you said? 81.
81.
See, this is a little unscientific. The reason is, of course, I'm a numbers guy, okay? I always go by numbers. Without numbers, any discussion is like poetry.
I like poetry.
But poetry is not science. So,
You sure about that?
poetry is not science, I said. What I'm saying.
He said poetry is science.
it's not.
No, it's not science.
That's what I just said. You sure about that?
No, please listen to my question, okay?
Okay, I'm just
But my question is, you see, when you put it this way, it's become a little, I mean, I am not in a very good mood to defend any white person because I got recently fired from my job because of a white person.
Congratulations.
But to be very honest with you, the thing is, this kind of is not fair. The reason is that in DC, there are 12 billionaires, right? 12. One of them is Jeff Bezos, maybe he's not white. And then there are 97 centimillionaires, those who have got at least $100 million worth, okay? Among these 97 centimillionaires, there are maybe a couple of blacks, only 3, maybe. So we cannot put that number and then do the calculation because I think that becomes a little.
I didn't say that every white person has 81 times the wealth of every black person. I said the average, and that's what the average means. You take the multiples, the total, and divide it, and that's the average. And so I think I alluded to the white people who don't should be even more mad, and they should have more reason to join this campaign and not pay their federal income taxes and get an immediate 30% bump in their income.
Yeah, and I would add this to that. And I understand what you're saying, and it's mathematically valid, right? It's like saying that me and Bill Gates, between the two of us, are worth an average of $150 billion, right? But the other part of it is this. While that number, though it may or not be skewed, you can go anywhere in the United States and find the same type of thing. You know, I mean, part of your argument makes a point of the dysfunction of our system, period, that you got a few billionaires and everybody out here is suffering. That's part of it, of what we have to talk about in general. But when it comes to black and white, anywhere you go in the United States, you find black folks who, many of them, have been here for 300 and 400 years, and white people who came in the 1920s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who came much, much later than the black folks, but were able to climb up the ladder while the black folks was building the ladder, basically. So it's consistent anywhere in the United States, but the numbers may not always be exactly the same.
126 is
I'm going by rows if anybody care to know what I'm doing. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for having us today. I'd just like to ask that you all expand on the idea of letting the American system fall, or the U.S. system fall, and what specifically you see as the vision for rebuilding. Because when I hear that, I think well, how is that going to benefit us to have the democracy that we do have?
You think this is democracy?
The democracy that we do have, the aspects of democracy
I'm
that...
serious question. You think this is a
I
democracy?
want to finish my statement. The aspects of democracy that we do have falling to fascism, for me, I see nothing but downside for myself and people like me. When I think about the roots of democracy on this land, I also just want to mention the Haudenosaunee people who had democracy here for 2,000 years under the Great Law of Peace. The peacemaker established this law, set up this system of representative government that Benjamin Franklin and others went and sat in their great council and witnessed how they sent representatives from 6 tribes and were able to, achieve a lasting peace between their people. So the roots of democracy in the bare bones form that we have now goes deep, but what happened is they stripped out primarily equality for women. In their system, the clan mothers are the only one who votes on the representatives, who can be men, right? And that's what kept them stable and out of wars for 2,000 years. So I want to say part of my vision is that women's voices are centered, that feminine vision is centered. I see that kind of as the only way forward. But I did want to hear from you specifically, what does that mean to watch the system fall at this time? And how do we build a more just system from those ashes, in your view, in your views?
Let me say that my name is Kimon Tecumseh. I'm a black Native American. And I felt that it was necessary to point that out. And
Yeah.
those who are not familiar with Tecumseh, I urge you to please look him up. I was pressing you for the question of whether you believe this is a democracy or you think it's, the promise of democracy, because on paper it's supposed to be. Those are two different responses depending on the foundation that your opinion is based on. I'm assuming you think this is a democracy. If I dispute that, I think that is a faulty premise, because I don't think America has ever been a democracy. It can only be accused of being anything close to a democracy till, what year you want to give it, 68, 70? They started trying to open up. A republic, okay. We'll work on a republic, but because that democracy, so my thing is, first of all, another thing you need to walk away with: America is not a country. This is not a country. This is an empire. It's a superpower. It's an empire. And finish the sentence with me, boys and girls. All empires. So try to understand from a person who represents two different factions of people, black and Native American, who was victims of the American Empire. Why would I want to say? You said earlier, Malcolm said the house is on fire. I'll pray for a win. I'm praying for a win, because I think we need to separate ourselves from America. I think Malcolm, I know it's MLK Day, but Malcolm's in the room. I heard these Negroes saying, our government's in trouble. He said, these little niggas don't be saying our government's in trouble. He said, the government's in trouble. And we need to separate ourselves from this system. And somehow we just can't seem to do that. We seem to be joined at the hip somehow, And if London Bridge is falling down, the wisest thing to do is to step aside. I think we need to decrease our level of dependency on the system and increase our interdependency on each other. That's my response.
I'll say this. So, this is an article, study, U.S. is an oligarchy, not a democracy. The U.S. is dominated by a rich and powerful elite. So concludes a recent study by Princeton University, and it gives the names. Multivariate analysis indicates that economic elites and organized groups representing business interests have substantially independent impacts on U.S. government policy, while average citizens and mass-based interest groups have little or no independent influence. One of the things that they looked at was, I think it was guns and whether or not you have to, remember there was something they wanted to do, was like whether or not you have to get some kind of a background check. 95% of Americans were in favor of it. Didn't go through. Couldn't get it through because the National Rifle Assistance, etc. Right. So the issue is, if it was a democracy, does it represent? Even if it's a republic, who does it represent? One could argue, there's an argument made, it is a democracy for the billionaires because it represents them. So it depends on which side. If you're a billionaire, if I got $1 billion, I can buy a bunch of congressmen, senators, put all kind of money, blah, blah, and I can get what I want. If I'm a poor black person in the community, I have no chance. So my argument is that empirical evidence, but studies show what I already know. They don't represent us. We can't get what we want. They don't represent the poor, they don't represent the downtrodden, they don't even represent the working class anymore in any way, shape, or form. So could you say it's a democracy? Yeah, but they don't represent the masses, they represent a tiny group. And the other thing I'll say about it is, and I understand what you're saying, it could be frightening for somebody to say, let this thing fall, right? There's another way to look at it. There's one of my favorite movies, it's a stupid movie, but it was like Star something, or one of these Star movies, right? One of these with the space movies. And at any rate, so this guy's running this spaceship. He's the captain of the spaceship. And, they're in this space battle shooting lasers. And one of the guys that's working for him looks at him, he says, Captain, he says, the helm's not responding. And our ship is caught in the planet's gravity. What do we do? He looks at him and says, we die. Right? What are you going to do? So it's not, I'll put it like this. If you think any of us in here has the power to let it crash or not let it crash, the fact that it has become an oligarchy for the top 0.0001% is crashing it. And we are on the ship and we're going to smash into the planet. The question is, how do we deal with that? How do we accept that? We're not like, yay, hooray, but we're like, for what it is now, desperately needs to change. It's going to crash. So the question is, what comes out on the other side and what input we have and how do we work to see that this thing, that we can't stop us crashing it? Because we're not all making money off derivatives and asset-backed securities by the billions. So how do we influence what comes out on the other side of a monster that's going around the world murdering people? And it's on the streets murdering us too now.
I'm going by the roads, I'm coming back, but I just want to say one more thing to this sister, because I think she deserves this, because what she said is a very honest question. What do we do?
I'm saying fall to what and build to what. That's my question.
Yeah, this all falls apart. What do we, and I'm trying to acknowledge the seriousness of her question. And I hope this gives you some comfort. This is from Milton Friedman, who is no friend of the progressive community whatsoever, but even a broke clock is right 2 times a day. So don't get tripped up when some far crazy right-wing person like Tucker Carlson says something that you agree with. Doesn't mean that Tucker Carlson is all good or something wrong with you. It's a broke clock to be right 2 times a day. Okay? All right. He says, only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the actions that are laying around. That, I believe, is our basic function, to develop alternatives to the existing policies, to keep them alive and available until the politically impossible becomes the politically inevitable. It is politically inevitable that the empire will fall. The question we must wrestle with is, what do we do about it? That's the question upon us. And I think the first thing is, keep your federal income tax in your pockets and start allocating it for better uses. I'm going by road. Yes, sir.
Two things I think I think it's really looking for is the fact that the capital stock trade ruled by the worst.
I'm sorry, the what?
Capital stock trade.
Kakistocracy, that's a system that's ruled by the stupidest, most corrupt people in the society.
Use all these big fancy words, Elder.
But, I'm
Say it again, what is it?
Kakistocracy.
I'm the only person that didn't know that what that meant. I'm the only, okay.
So anyway, I think one thing that we've got to look at is that the past history of empire is not really appropriate for this particular empire because the problems that we're facing are the problems that come with the developed technology we have. The old empires had technological boundaries. This new empire, the American empire, doesn't have those boundaries. And I think it's a very different thing going on in terms of empire style.
How does that affect our response?
Huh?
How does that affect our response?
Well, that's the question. Now, how do we collectively respond to it? I think the first thing is that first get people to understand that it's different. It's not like the British Empire fall. It's very different. I think we have to think about it differently. With the rapid increase of mechanical labor, because as we all know, all wealth is based on labor, on human labor, until now. Now, it's not necessarily so. Because
You talking about AI?
Huh?
You talking about AI?
Well, mechanics, robots, AI is in here.
Everyone knows that they say AI will replace like 40% of the employees in like the next 5 years and
Well, it's a significant number, yeah. So therefore, the basis of wealth is no longer based on human beings anymore. So therefore, the responses of empire will be different because they don't really need it. So that's something we need to talk about as a group of working class people that need to be introduced.
okay, you can't say some gangster stuff like that without giving us one nugget of what you think we should be doing to respond to it.
Well, no, well, I think the first response is to introduce the idea to the working class public, because a lot of people don't understand that. And you're part of the cadre that in front of people that can help talk to the mass of people. We need to educate the mass of people about what's really the real deal. Now, the second thing, and it has to do with literacy, if you will, we've got to get people to read some of the information. One of the embarrassing things in this nowadays is that the things that the ruling class are doing, they don't hide it. It's written down. They read books about it, but most people don't read it. They don't have to censor books because nobody buys them. That's the reason why there are no books sold in Southeast. I was so shocked when I went down to Walnut bookstore, and they were closed again. Now, I'm an old guy, so I remember other black bookstores over in South Asian closed too, simply because people don't buy books. You know, they simply don't buy it. So, how do we get the idea of increased literacy and a higher level of discussion in our community? I mean, people need to discuss more than just the bread and butter right now. That's important. That's primary important. I understand. Rent's due tomorrow. I understand that. But that's a trap when you only work toward just paying rent next month. That is a very big trap because the bigger game is what we've got going here. And that's why I have to respectfully disagree with his point of no paying taxes. Now, I'm in the D.C. Statehood Party, the D.C. Statehood Party has been around a long time.
So am I.
And, yep. And that argument, or that discussion has been pounded over for a long time. And
I'm sorry, you say you didn't disagree with that?
Yes, I disagree.
Oh, so we don't have unanimous support.
Yeah, well,
So it's you and Mozzie, you need to talk to him. Y'all need to get together and form your own little political party.
There's a very reasonable reason. The simple thing that would happen is that working class people would be priced out of D.C. The landlord,
we talked about it.
The landlord owners would just run a price check, $10,000 a month for a little hovel in the Southeast.
There's things we can do to offset that.
We have to talk. I think it needs to be talked about.
I told you that we can make a grandfather clause, like that would be reserved for people who lived here by X amount of time, and we need to determine what that time was. Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? 25 years? What is the time that you have to have lived here before your federal exemption takes effect for you?
Well, let me know.
You know, there's things we can do, you know, to offset that.
We're talking about because that idea came before, so of course we're talking about looking at the pros and cons both ways.
Yeah.
So I would like to see maybe like the Black Panthers did back in the day. We have a reading list of progressive and, revolutionary thinkers that have written things and information, that have a book list that we recommend to people. Say, look, take a read of this and see what you understand.
Dr. Amos Wilson said we should have Saturday classes.
First one came to mind when you were saying about how they're plotting to get the money out of working class. There's a book called Democracy in Chains. Anybody heard of it?
Democracy in Chains. I'm repeating it, so I got it.
Right, you really need to take a look at it. It's a woman that lived in George Mason University, found some old papers with all the right-wing fascist people have been plotting to take over the United States since 1950, along with the Koch brothers and all that sort of stuff. And they said, hey, we take the judiciary first, and we can do anything we want. That's exactly what we've seen now.
Yeah, but I hear you, but it's like take over. I mean, it's just the next, whose turn next, because it's been the same since the beginning. Like,
well, no, there was a little bit of setback. You had the Roosevelt time, there was a little bit of setback, there was a little bit of civil war and things.
okay, but I got you. I got to get the next row.
What I'd like to do then, book this developed from, to try to get a hold of the working class and raise some class consciousness. Because a lot of working class people don't think they're working class, they think they're capitalists.
Bob, tell them your name. Tell them your name.
Who?
Tell them your name.
Oh, me? Oh, Thomas Smith.
Thomas Smith.
Yep.
And your contribution to the banned book list was Democracy
In Chains.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot her name.
I would be remiss if I don't mention to everyone that my nonprofits, Social Art Culture, representing WEAC Radio, we're renovating the lower level. I'm supposed to stop saying the basement. The lower level of WEAC Radio has been renovated, and it will be the largest collection of banned books in the nation's capital, and we hope to open by the end of the summer. All right. Okay. And my little dragon. Am I on the right road? Okay, my little dragon.
I wanted you to talk a little more about ICE and the black community. You said the revolution is maybe starting in Minnesota. I thought it was very interesting when you read Bernice's statement that the first thing on there was about ICE. And I've heard people on social media saying we shouldn't talk about ICE like the fascist Gestapo's reminiscent of Germany. We should talk about them in our own history of slave catchers, bounty hunters. And also, I've seen a lot, just in the last couple of days on social media, about the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense that's coming out to defend people against ICE. So what are you seeing as reaction in the black community to this ICE?
I just think ICE is the modern day Ku Klux Klan. My personal opinion, I think that what we're seeing is what we've always seen in our communities, where people are asking, where your papers at? Are you supposed to be here? They have been unleashed as the new fascist regime to implement the tenets of white supremacy. People need to understand. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, Mr. Lily Fuller said that until you understand white supremacy, what it is, the institution of white supremacy, of what it is and how it works, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you. And what has been a constant thread in the United States of America, longer than 250 years, white supremacy is older than America. And that program has followed the same dictates throughout the centuries. It's been very consistent, never deviated. It's only, leaned back and take on different forms, and they change the words. I think ICE is the last manifestation of it. What you guys are seeing is not only the fall of the empire and the desperation to save it. You're seeing white supremacy and the desperation to maintain itself. Because white supremacy is not a couple of hillbillies in a pickup truck waving a Confederate flag, screaming, yee-haw. White supremacy is, if you go to a movie and you see Latino actors, a Latino director, that's a Latino film for Latinos. You go to movies, you see an Asian film with Asian actors, an Asian director, that's an Asian film for Asian people. But if you go to a film that's all white people, all white directors, all white producers, all white everything, that's just a movie for everybody. Because their shit don't stink. And you can see in their desperate to maintain themselves, they're trying to tell you what the story is. They used to be able to tell you without question what the story is, but now with the technology, we be able to contribute to that story. And to answer your question, I think in terms of ICE, it's just the current, egregious level of their application. And we need to understand that this is not a Republican thing, because Democrats fund ICE. Democrats voted support ICE, to implement ICE. And there was quite a few Democrats that still, to this day, this very day, support them. And so that sounds like bipartisanship. And I'm very proud to see groups like the independent group you just mentioned, that version of the Black Panther Party. I'm very hesitant to ever bestow that name on a group unless they have proved to me that they have done what the Black Panther Party was doing in terms of the programs, sickle cell programs, the free breakfast programs, and all those things. It wasn't just there with the guns and the rhetoric. So I'm always hesitant to share that title. But I hope I answered your question. I'm just being very honest with you guys that we are at a very serious time and a very exciting time, and we need all the allies we get, and we should be very careful on who version of stories that we are accepting. And I think the 6 corporations that control most of what we see here and read should be the last ones that gets that benefit of the doubt. You should be listening to people like Garland, Nixon on Fridays at 6 p.m., WPFW, Pacifica Networks, God forbid, We Act Radio, and any other independent media that you subscribe to, because we are in a battle of the minds. They say that, they go to war. We in a battle for the hearts and minds, and that's why we continue to hear the same thing over and over. It's going to be very interesting to see what this case happens, because it's been tried out in the court of public opinion. But we cannot overlook the fact that had that woman who was killed not been a white woman, it wouldn't have reached this pitch, because this is not the first person ICE has killed. But it's the first white woman that I know of. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody else, and it was on tape. Y'all got to put that out there. And it was on tape. So that means you have a visceral reaction to it, and that was the power of George Floyd, because we all shared that, and now with her we can see it. And this was a sanitized version. Imagine if we actually saw like the Charlie Kirk joint. But I hope I answered your question, my dear. Garland, I'm taking the lion's share of this, and I apologize, sir. Please continue.
There's a lot of ways to look at the ICE too, and just another way, I agree with everything you said, and another way is the old, camel's nose under the tent. When the camel gets his nose under the tent, more and more the camel, before you know it, the whole camel's in there, right? And I think, I could look at it like this, because I came from law enforcement, and I remember when they started doing all of this program where they were giving the policemen old army stuff, the MRAP, anti-tank stuff and all, and then they started putting them all in camouflage, right? And now, then you see, you see some National Guard, they're wandering around. Then you see ICE. Now that there's some conflicts that were inevitable when ICE was federal people on the street, inevitably there's going to be the conflicts, right? That was the intent. Now what comes next? Now they're like, we're getting 1,500 troops together to send the troops. You just start with one. And then then the cops all look like came out of the 82nd Airborne, now. Then next thing you know, then comes the National Guard, then come ICE, next there's troops. It's just a way that they continually creep more and more to get more federal.